Jane Velez Mitchell, Jane Unchained Live Talk. We are talking to two of the plaintiffs trying to stop the horrific bulldozing of LA's last coastal wetlands, the Ballona Wetlands Ecological Reserve that was promised to the people of Los Angeles that it would remain pristine. It is home to 1,700 different species. We are showing you right now some photos of the animals taken on the Ballona Wetlands. The people who want to bulldoze this, and they have their own plan, and these critics will tell you why they can make a very good argument that this is all about allowing the fossil fuel industry to restore the infrastructure that sits underneath the wetlands that is crumbling. They like to describe the Ballona Wetlands as dead and dying. No, it's not. It is thriving. So let's start with Marcia Hanscom. Tell us why you have made this your mission to stop the destruction of LA's last coastal wetlands in Playa del Rey.
Well, first of all, we worked, many people, hundreds and thousands of people actually, worked to save this land to begin with. We saved 640 acres of land in 2003, 2004, and now it's got to be saved again because SoCalGas, which has this huge gas storage field underneath the Ballona Wetlands, many people don't know that, it is leaking. And it's really it's causing more problems than anyone ever thought could happen. And so now, in fact, this morning, all over next door in our community, people are asking, why are there all these big drilling rigs all over the wetlands? Well, that's part of this big project to destroy the wetlands in order to save SoCalGas's storage field, which really shouldn't be there to begin with.
Yes. And so I have lived in this area since 1990, and only a couple of months ago did I become aware that there were gas storage facilities underneath the wetlands. When I attended this demonstration, Don't Bulldoze Ballona, which occurred across the street from Playa Vista. Now, this was a shock to me because I live in this area and I do not want to see traffic hell for more than a decade. You know, they say 9 years of bulldozing this entire ginormous area on both sides of Lincoln Boulevard. This is going to cripple traffic going to LAX. It's going to cripple traffic in the overdeveloped, already wildly overdeveloped Marina del Rey, Playa del Rey, Westchester, Culver City, Venice. It's going to have a massive impact. And I was shocked to learn that there is a gas infrastructure underneath the Ballona Wetlands. Then I started researching. I realized, oh my gosh, the Aliso Canyon leak and blowout that happened in a similar facility here in the Los Angeles area, which is considered one of the worst environmental disasters in California history in 2015, 2016, is a similar kind of setup. Underground storage facility of gas that was fracked in another state and piped in. And correct me if I'm wrong, Marcia, if I get anything wrong, because you're the expert. And so I was like, wow, yeah, there is this infrastructure underneath the Ballona Wetlands. I was a reporter in the early 1990s at KCAL Channel 9, when I covered Martin Sheen marching with indigenous people against the Playa Vista big complex before it was built, when it was just a plan. And I was told by the executives, don't worry, there will always be pristine wetlands there. Suddenly it clicked in my head and it all came together. Oh my God, they promised that they would leave this wetlands, this one little sliver that is teeming with 1,700 different species, some endangered, some threatened. They promised that they would leave this alone, and now they want to bulldoze it. They want to bulldoze the whole thing. So why did you decide, Lisa Carlin, to become a plaintiff in this lawsuit to stop the destruction of the Ballona wetlands, something that is estimated to take at least 9 years? You know that's going to mean well over a decade, maybe even a decade and a half of traffic hell.
This is just, it's outrageous. And they're taking advantage. They're playing all ends against the middle, and they're taking advantage, letting people think that this is a restoration to make it better. It's not about making it better. I mean, there might be a couple things they can do, but it is beautiful the way it is. And we implore anyone, especially people on the Coastal Commission, Heal the Bay, the Coastal Protection Association, all of the organizations who are participating in this, to come down, meet us at the Ballona Wetlands. We will take them on a tour. They will see the water, the beautiful animals in a pristine environment living in nature. If they bulldoze this, it will be cement. They will have to take down all that exists. They're talking about putting these animals in cages for 9 years. Really? Wildlife in cages across the street for 9 years? They won't survive that. They'll die. And many of these species are endangered. They need to be left alone. This is a beautiful, beautiful area. The reason is there is gas storage underneath it, and they want to restore that gas storage. They don't want to restore the Ballona wetlands, and they're pulling the wool over the eyes of people, leading them to believe that they're going to make this place prettier and more accessible. Right now, there is a gate that is locked. You have that picture of the locked gate, Jane? Keeping people out.
You can go to defendballonawetlands.org
and see
a lot of information, and we keep uploading it because we keep learning more every day. And it's not my website. It's actually just an entire collection of people who are upset about this, who are uploading information as they get it. So you can go to defendballonawetlands.org and check it out. Go ahead,
right.
Continue.
It's going there and visiting it, looking at the photographs, which are current. They were taken within the last few months. These are not photographs from years ago. They are current photographs. And if anybody goes there, they'll see this is beautiful. What a beautiful place. They talk about wanting to make it for inner city kids. Well, inner city kids, they can go there today. All they need to do is unlock the gate. So this is just subterfuge. They are just leading people to believe that this is an area that needs to be restored. And if you want to restore it for the fossil fuel industry, well, we're going to sacrifice this beautiful last bastion of beautiful natural land that serves the natural environment. Birds that migrate to the south for the winter stop there. This is a resting place for them. If we bulldoze it, they won't have a place to go. Where are they going to go? Century City? I don't think so. This needs to remain the way it is, and we, the public, need to speak up to the Coastal Commission, to the Coastal Conservancy. Go to our website, go to our Facebook page, Defend Ballona Wetlands, and get involved.
I want to also bring in this. This is the front page of the New York Times today. The fires have devastated populations of endangered species in the West. Blazes on the West Coast scorch habitats for endangered species. The fast-moving fires have wiped out critical populations of endangered species and incinerated native habitats that may take years to recover. And some of the animals that they mentioned that have lost their habitat are actually animals like owls that have a habitat at the Ballona wetlands. So how insane is it when they've already been deprived of millions of acres of habitat in Northern California? Let's destroy the rest of their habitat here in Los Angeles, Marcia. It's infuriating. It's such a crazy plan. And that's why this idea that public access, this is what they say. I've been to now 5 hearings. There's another hearing, and you can register on this intro below to attend today, which happens to be September 17th, if you're seeing this at a future time. But you can register today. The link to the Zoom is on. It's at 1 p.m. Pacific, and you can attend and just say, "Don't bulldoze Ballona" in the general comments time.
It's
And
number 8. It's number 8 on the list.
General comments. But the point is that they say, well, we're doing all this to provide public access because there are millions of people who live here in Los Angeles and they need public access. The truth is that the land isn't going to increase. There's a finite amount of land on the planet, and that includes the land that they're going to trash with their just absolutely outrageous bulldozing plan. And so you're actually going to deprive people of all these hundreds of acres for at least a decade. Okay, they say 9 years. Have you ever done a construction project that lasts exactly that time? We all know, anybody who's ever remodeled in a place knows that it always takes longer. It could be a decade and a half before we get access. Meanwhile, climate change is accelerating. We see it with the horrific wildfires and everything else that's going on. We don't even know what the environmental situation is going to be in a decade. At the rate we are destroying wildlife, and CNN and the New York Times have been reporting this, we've destroyed 68% of the world's wildlife in the last 50 years. There may be zero wildlife left in 10 years. Some estimates are by 2026, we'll have essentially no wildlife vertebrates on the planet. So they're going to take 10 years to bulldoze this area. So kids who are 10 now are going to be in their 20s before they even have access to this. And they're arguing they're doing it to give them public access when today they could have public access. And there's a gate, a giant gate that they built at taxpayer expense that remains locked. And on the other side, there are bike paths and there are walking trails and there are bike racks and there are benches that nobody can use, Marcia?
Right. I mean, the who has the keys to this gate? SoCal Gas. They go in and clean up their wells and check the monitoring of them on a regular basis. But the public's not allowed in. When the public paid $140 million in 2003 to buy this land. It's insane. And so the fact is, right now, SoCal Gas is out there right now with their big rigs attempting to install new fossil fuel infrastructure so that they can stay longer. And that is part of this so-called restoration. It's not a restoration. The scientists have said so.
Now, there have been protests against this. Again, I first learned about it when I was invited by a friend of mine to attend this protest. And I was like, what? There you see me right in the corner, the upper left. I'm in shock. I was like, they're going to destroy the wetlands? What? That's not possible. It's massive. It's on both sides of Lincoln Boulevard in the Playa del Rey area. The entrance to the Ballona Wetlands is right at Lincoln and Jefferson. It's home to many 1,700 species. These photographs were taken at the Ballona Wetlands. The proponents are arguing that it's dead and dying. But all of us who live here know with our own eyes that it's not dead and dying. Those photographs were taken at the Ballona Wetlands. It is teeming with wildlife. And that's why this coalition, there's a coalition of just some of the people who have gone to meetings and testified against it and said no. But the powers that be, the forces behind this are very powerful, and they have a lot of money, and they've given a lot of donations to various organizations that now support it and throw around this public access. And this is, I've gone to several hearings now. This is what they say. There's millions of people who live in this Los Angeles area, and we need to provide more green space for them. And the green space is there right now. They could provide access to the green space, which would actually give an enriched experience to the kids. The kids from the inner city that they purport to want to help could actually see nature. They could actually see actual wildlife. But no, what they want to do is bulldoze paradise and literally put up a parking lot. There is literally, as part of this plan, a 300-car parking garage that they're going to install it right around the marina, so that it's the song "Pave Paradise, Put Up a Parking Lot" applies perfectly to this, Lisa Carlin.
Yes, absolutely. And what I want people to understand is when it's gone, if they succeed and it's gone, people are going to go, "What the hell happened? How did this happen? How do we not know about it?" Well, this is the time to know about it. We have to be proactive. We have to get involved. Whether you live in the marina, in Marina del Rey or Playa del Rey, if you live anywhere in the country, this really
in the world,
bastion of beautiful natural land that needs to be preserved. And what they're doing is if you follow the money, bond money was misused. We have a lawsuit that we filed. We're going to try to stop this, but we're just a small group of people. We need public support. And if we follow the money, you see that this money was not spent appropriately. Bond money was spent to protect the Ballona wetlands, and that's not what's happening. So it's so important. Marshall can speak to how the money has been spent. It's unconscionable. So as a human being who loves nature and who grew up in this area, I want to protect it. I want to protect it with every cell in my body, and that's why I'm spending my own money, my own time to try to bring this message to the public.
Where are these animals going to go? Now, I attended a meeting where one of the proponents who made a presentation said, literally, they will go across the street and then they will come back in a decade. I mean, are we being asked to really defy our common sense? They're going to go, this pelican is going to go across the street for a decade and then come back along with this owl and this skunk. And some of these animals are endangered and some are threatened. Can you address that and why the Endangered Species Act is not protecting them?
Well, the people who are planning this project have never actually done a project like this. So they're confused a little bit, I think. And they haven't even done the proper analysis through the federal laws. Like you say, there's an Endangered Species Act. The Endangered Species Act has to be complied with. There are 7 species on either the state or federal endangered species list. There are dozens.
Live there. Spell it out.
I'm sorry?
Spell it out. There are 7 endangered. Where do they live?
7 endangered species: the least Bell's vireo, the El Segundo blue butterfly, the California gnatcatcher, the
but they live at the Ballona wetlands.
I'm sorry?
They live at the Ballona wetlands.
They rely on this habitat for their life cycles. Some of them are there year round. Some of them are there as they come here to nest, and then they go somewhere else during the winter or during the winter time. Yes. So it's we have a habitat that's essential for them, and the Fish and Wildlife Service hasn't had a chance to even weigh in on this yet, because the Army Corps of Engineers is supposed to do all of the permitting under the National Environmental Policy Act, but they are holding things up right now because some of the more than $12 million in our public bond money that has been spent to engineer and plan this has been used incorrectly. They used it for an engineering study that cost a couple $1 million that was predicated on an inaccurate standard for flooding.
You know a lot about this, so we're going to have to bring it down to terms that people understand. In your lawsuit, you say this is not a restoration. Right. They're using the word restoration, which is a word they have to use certain funds. So they're saying bulldozing this whole thing is a restoration, when common sense would tell you that you don't destroy a habitat for all these animals and ask people to believe that that is a restoration. That is a destruction. If you look in the dictionary, restoration and destruction are antonyms. They are not synonyms.
Right.
So this is Orwellian language.
Absolutely.
Additionally, you're saying, Marcia, that there is a safety risk. And by the way, we invite SoCal Gas or any of the organizations that are in favor of this on any time. In fact, we'd love to dialogue with them. We would love to go on a tour of the Ballona Wetlands, which they claim is dead and dying, and introduce them to all these animals who live there, who they believe or claim, I don't think they really believe it, are going to move across the street and wait a decade and then magically reappear. We know from previous phony restorations that the only animals that seem to appear to my eyes, because I see the Oxford Lagoon here on Washington Boulevard and I've studied it, seagulls. That's like saying there's going to be pigeons in Manhattan. Nothing against seagulls, but that's not the same as biodiversity. Okay. So what's happening right now, these animals at the Ballona Wetlands, this is biodiversity in action. If you destroy the entire thing over 10 years and claim the animals are just going to move across the street and wait a decade and then magically reappear here, I believe that is complete fantasy, which is misleading, frankly. And that's the destruction of biodiversity at a crucial time when the front page of the New York Times today is saying that the West Coast habitats have been destroyed because of the fires. So let's just take another habitat and destroy it too at $250 million of public expense, when that's exactly what's happening with the wildfires. It's, to me, I can't even wrap my head around how illogical and how twisted this is. And so my personal opinion is that this is a contortion that is designed to achieve the goals of the fossil fuel industry, because they've got these crumbling wells and infrastructure way underneath the wetlands that they need to restore to prevent another disaster like we had at Aliso Canyon. So will you tell me now, Marcia, about, in plain terms, the mistakes that were made, according to you, with the flood issue?
Well, it's actually not a mistake according to me. It's a mistake according to the LA County Flood Control District and the Army Corps of Engineers. Those two agencies have actually argued with the State Coastal Conservancy, who's pushing this project, for 2 years, and told them, no, we will not make a project, that we will not permit a project or even consider permitting a project that is going to have a lesser flood control standard. What that means is when it rains, heavy rains, and you have a big storm, the Ballona Wetlands and the Ballona Creek Channel is supposed to include a certain amount of water that it can hold. Well, they want to take, the people who want to do this project, including SoCal Gas, they want to take out the levees of Ballona Creek. If they do that, those levees are there to...
Say it in another word. A lot of people don't know what levees are.
Okay, levees are the sides of the creek. They're made out of soil, but they're compacted, and they're higher than the creek. So they allow for the floods to come right through the creek into the ocean. That creek channel and those levees on either side run right through the middle of the Ballona Wetlands Ecological Reserve. And they want to demolish those levees. One of them is a bicycle path. So that will tell you, the people who ride on the North Levee, that is a levee they're riding on, the bicycle path going all the way from Culver City down to the ocean. And it's a beautiful bicycle path. We don't want to see it demolished. Well, that's what they would do. So in order to still, if they demolish the levees, they still have to have protection from floods for the local businesses, the roads, the people who live in the area. And the Army Corps of Engineers, normally, I would say they aren't always on the right side of the environment, but in this case, they are. They're very, very concerned that this
I was going to say, and what about the freshwater versus saltwater? Right now, it's freshwater, correct?
Well, it's sort of a mixture in the creek. It's a mixture. It's salt water coming from the ocean and fresh water coming down from the rains. And the marshes on either side of the levees are more fresh, and they want to take out the levees and bring the ocean water in more, which will actually harm and kill many of the species if that happens.
Right.
So a lot of those animals and plants are evolved to need more of a freshwater brackish regime, not to be highly saline like the ocean.
I want to discuss their arguments, because what they say is their number one argument seems to be, correct me if I'm wrong, public access. Again, it's right there right now. They're not going to miraculously create more land. There's a finite amount of land. There are tours that happen at the Ballona Wetlands Ecological Reserve, and with a very minimal and gentle restoration, you could have quadruple or more. You could have kids going through there and actually experiencing the wildlife now. Again, there is a giant gate that was built at taxpayer expense that is locked, and SoCal Gas has the key, and they haven't disputed that. So they're holding public access hostage so they can make the argument there's no public access. We'll just unlock the gate, and then there could be public access. And it could be the kind of public access to nature that scientists are urging in the wake of a pandemic. Remember, we're in the middle of a zoonotic pandemic that jumped from animals to humans. What are scientists saying? Give nature some room. Respect nature. So bulldozing habitat for 1,700 species is the penultimate opposite of that. Whereas right now, you could have respectful tours with school kids actually seeing animals in all their beauty, which I see every day since I live in this area. I could testify under oath in a court of law that this area is not dead, that it is teeming with wildlife. I saw a peacock 2 days ago. Okay. I see wildlife all the time. So my point is that if they just use this blanket statement about, and really, I feel, as a woman of color myself, offended that they're sort of throwing out, inner city kids need to have public space. And it's sort of like they're hiding behind that, because I believe this is hurting inner city kids. It's going to be a decade of this construction or destruction, okay? And so what happens to those inner city kids during that entire time? They don't have access to any of this, whereas they could have access today and actually experience nature. So for the sake of inner city kids who are deprived of green space, they should be given the opportunity to see the green space today, and a meaningful space, not just a big park. Okay, it's been described what they want to do of this area. So 300 car parking garage. And then of course you're going to have the bathrooms. And so they're going to destroy what makes it special, what makes it magical. And they're saying they're doing this for kids, when a 10-year-old today will be in his 20s before he or she could even access this. It's offensive to me. It's offensive to me.
And these animals will be dead because they don't have the life expectancy of 10 years. Many of those species will be, I mean, if you look talk to the biologists, they're all ages. And if they're taken and put in captivity across the street, they're going to be dead. They will not be reproducing. And this wildlife, this area will be defunct of this wildlife.
I mean, it insults intelligence to say that they're going to, and this was a quote. I mean, we were all there. We heard this and saw it. And the woman said, yeah, they're going to move. Luckily, they can move across the street. And I'm thinking, where? The Home Depot parking lot? To the TMZ offices? To Playa Vista? They're going to go to the movies at Playa Vista? I mean, it's really, I feel they're insulting our intelligence.
Well, and last night,
Arrogance behind it. We're going to do it. We're powerful. We have big, fancy groups behind us. But, you know, there's almost 40 organizations, including the Sierra Club. You can elaborate on that, that are absolutely against this plan, Marcia.
yes, there are In Defense of Animals. The Los Angeles County Democratic Party has looked at this in detail, and 8 Democratic clubs have come out against this project. The Sierra Club, as you said, numerous groups. If you look at defendballonawetlands.org, you can see some of the groups that are opposed to this project. And, you know, what's interesting, you mentioned the moving across the street of the animals. Well, last night there was a webinar put on by one of the groups that's one of the strongest proponents of this project. And they actually admitted that, yes, we do have a plan for capturing some of the animals. Well, this is an ecological reserve with wildlife. You don't just capture animals and where are they going to put them and how long will they survive? That just isn't the way it works. And what there are, as you said, there are 1,700 species here. What are they going to do? I mean, they're going to take all the little butterfly caterpillars and put them in cages. They're going to take the lizards and the frogs and I mean, it's just absurd. The whole.
Well, and the other thing is that in one of the hearings that I attended, they said no animals have been harmed or killed in previous restorations. And you personally had evidence to the contrary. Can you tell me about that?
Sure.
And when I say restorations, I'm talking in quotes. That's the phrase they use, the Orwellian, you know, double speak. You say the opposite of what is the reality, the alternative fact, which is also known as a lie. We're seeing a lot of that in the administration, frankly, and it's sort of shocking to see it being used in an environmental context. Go ahead, Marcia.
It's very shocking, but you know, I watched a much smaller project, only 13 acres they bulldozed at Malibu Lagoon. This is going to be more than 600 acres at Ballona if they were allowed to do it. At Malibu, I watched for several months these bulldozers just constantly taking out every blade of grass, every plant, every animal, and they had supposed experts going around with little cages and little cups and putting all the animals in them, putting little collars around the lizards. It was unbelievable. And my partner, who is a biologist, predicted that there was going to be a problem with a couple of rare species. His name is Robert Vanderhook, and he's been studying these wetlands for many years. And he said, look, the South Coast marsh vole and the ornate shrew, these 2 little animals that are essential for the habitat at these wetlands, they're going to find them there. I know they are. And it turns out they did. And they didn't even know what they were. The people at the Bay Foundation, this ecologically illiterate group that is pushing this, and they didn't know what they were. So, and state parks didn't even know what they were. So they sent them to the Natural History Museum to have them identified. And indeed, of course, by then they were dead. They were specimens, and they were these rare species that should probably be on the endangered species list because we've destroyed so much of their habitat here in Southern California. So, though, you know, that we know that could happen here. Of course, they're small little animals. They're animals that are part of the circle of life. Some of the birds eat them. And so they're very important to this ecosystem. And they are going to be destroyed. The burrowing owl, that which you just showed, it's a beautiful little rare species, also soon to be on the endangered species list.
Is this the owl?
This is the burrowing owl, yes. And it lives in little holes in the ground. How are the bulldozers going to evade that? They aren't. They're going to just
not
ruin their habitat, taking out the levee.
Destruction. And let me say this: we are not benefiting. Like, I don't get a commission for every acre they serve. Okay. This has cost us time, money, energy. It's frustrating. It's a David and Goliath battle. The other side has financial interests. The organizations that are promoting this, and we invite them on anytime. We would love to dialogue with them. I have reached out and tried to get, for example, one of the groups that's very much in favor of this, Heal the Bay. I've invited them on. I didn't hear back. And you're invited on anytime, because I don't understand why you would support something like this.
Let's have a debate.
When your word is heal, heal, heal. But I want to ask you, what is this argument that they have about there was some movement of land? It sounds like, basically when you reverse engineer an argument to get to what you really need, which is restoring the crumbling gas infrastructure, let's come up with basically an excuse in plain English to do this. And the excuse that they've offered is that the marina moved some land in the construction of the marina. Therefore, that land is not authentic, original land, as if any piece of land on the planet today is the way God create, or nature, or whatever your higher power is. If you have a higher power, is exactly as it was created. The earth is constantly moving, and humans have impacted almost every square inch of the earth. If you're saying that because there was man-made action on this Ballona ecological land whenever, 100 years ago or 50 years ago, therefore we have to destroy the whole thing and take it and put it back the way nature intended millennia ago. Nature adapts. Nature is great at adapting. Wildlife is great at adapting. And they have adapted to the small changes that were made, and they're thriving there. So to me, that absolutely is a complete excuse. You're going to destroy the entire thing because it's not exactly as it was 1,000 years ago. And again, my mind kind of explodes when I try to even make a case for them to explain their side. Can you elaborate a little bit on this, Marcia? What their argument? Let's deconstruct it.
Right. Well, we need to talk about what are the drivers of this project. One is SoCal Gas, and the other is public bond money. And what happened is we used $140 million of public bond money to buy this land. There's a whole lot left that they want to use to, quote, change the landscape. They call it restoring. And it's not even to put it back the way it was. It's to put it into some new configuration. So yes, there is soil that was in part of the wetlands were destroyed to build Marina del Rey in the early 1960s. And that soil in the mud, the marsh, some of it was moved on top of a part of the Ballona Wetlands, not all over it. They make it sound like it's all higher than it used to be. And even if it were, it would just mean it's a higher elevation, but it's not. It's only in one part. And in that part, it is a little bit higher than it was, but it's sort of like putting soil on top of soil, marsh on top of marsh. And so after 60 years now, there's an equilibrium, and there is habitat that's very well functioning there. Could things be a little different? Yes. And could we bring back some other species that used to be there? Maybe the roadrunner or the jackrabbit. I mean, yes, there are some animals that could be brought back. There are some plants that could be brought back. But there are hundreds.
You'd have to kill 1,700 species and spend years
bulldozing. You don't need to destroy the village to save it. You know, that's what was said in Vietnam. And you don't need to destroy the wetlands to save it either.
And we're wrapping up. It's been a longer conversation than I expected, but we could talk about this for hours. Again, we invite all the organizations that are pushing this plan to come on, Jane Unchained. It's an open invitation. We would love to dialogue with you. There are 4 options that are being considered. Option 1 is the total destruction, bulldozing traffic hell for at least a decade. They say 9 years, but you know how that goes. And by the way, that's on the road to LAX. So imagine what it's going to be like getting to LAX. They've overdeveloped this area. They've built huge apartment complexes all around the marina. And now in the pandemic, some of them are not getting filled up. And so it's already very, very hard to get around. And this is going to make it much worse. So we invite anybody who cares about the wetlands. Let me just say one final thing. What happens in LA, we all know, spreads to the rest of the world. Okay. That's what LA is famous for, starting trends. Well, we've heard from numerous people who say they're trying to do the same thing to our wetlands too. They're trying to put a bike path across the Alligator Alley. Now, I lived in Florida. I drove across the Alligator Alley in a convertible and I practically passed out. Maybe there's 4 or 5 people in America who could bike across the Alligator Alley. It's not about providing public access. It's about contracts. It's about who's going to make money building the waste stations and everything else that's going to despoil, again, a natural habitat. At the bottom, at the heart of the, I would say, moral bankruptcy behind all of these phony restorations is a desire to monetize. The people who want to rip this up, see, why isn't this land making money for me? There's no money to be had because we need to change. We as a human species need to change our outlook. We've destroyed 68% of the world's wildlife in the last 50 years. At the rate we're going, and check it out, it was just in CNN and the New York Times, and the wildfires have accelerated it. Again, this is the front page of the New York Times right now. Fast-moving fires have wiped out critical populations of endangered species and incinerated native habitats that may take years to recover. We don't need to incinerate their migratory landing spot here in LA. Everything else has been incinerated for them. Give nature a tiny little space to thrive, or we are doomed because we are part of the natural world. If we indeed destroy all the wildlife vertebrates on this planet, it will trigger an ecological collapse that is going to take us all down. We are seeing that right now. And so it's very important to urge Governor Gavin Newsom. He could nuke this. He could get rid of this crazy plan to destroy the wetlands here in Los Angeles, the Ballona Wetlands. Go to defendballonawetlands.org. Sign up for the newsletter. Get involved. There is a hearing today, September 17th at 1 p.m. The link, you can register for item number 8, public comment, and just say, don't bulldoze Ballona. That's what these protests have been saying. Don't bulldoze Ballona. And one of the final things I want to say is that what we're accomplishing is at least letting people know this is happening, because part of it was to do it under the radar, where it was a fait accompli and everything had been approved, and then people would be powerless to stop it. So I will tell you, I live in this area. I visit the Ballona Wetlands constantly because I live here, and people in this area don't know about it, and we're letting them know. When they know, their first reaction is to a person. What? Mm-hmm. They're not. Why would they possibly bulldoze the Ballona Wetlands? They wouldn't do that. Yes, they would.
So I'd like to ask everybody who's watching this to please share this, because that's how we get the message out. Some people are watching live with us, but many more will watch it when it comes across their feed. So please write a little something. SaveTheBallonaWetlands.org is our website. Put that in the description and please share the feed. And you can share it on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube, on Instagram. Please share this feed.
Thank you so much. I want to thank all 3 of you. I want to thank all 2 of you. I know you've got Roy there was an expert who was going to join us as well. Thank you so much for all your hard work. Again, we have no interest, but other than wanting to preserve what we know in our hearts and our minds is the most important thing to preserve. Our natural world. If we destroy it all, we ourselves are doomed. Please think about it. And I urge all those people who have been convinced, these organizations, some of whom have gotten sizable donations from SoCal Gas, who are saying, justifying this in their minds, to open their hearts and really think about it. Because I know if you really think about it, you will come to the conclusion that this is morally wrong. It is wrong. Okay. It is morally wrong to destroy the homes of all these animals and then to add insult to injury, call it a restoration. No. It's time. You can turn around and you can adopt the gentle restoration that will achieve your goals, that will allow for public access today. The kids who are kids today, not kids who are going to be kids in who aren't even born yet.
Right.
Today, they could have public access. And with the acceleration of climate change, you're playing with fire. Nobody even knows what the flood levels, the water levels, the temperature levels are going to be in a decade. Stop playing God with this piece of land. You know, the nature has said this is working the way it is. With a few gentle changes, we can have total access for the kids today to see nature, not to see a crime scene where nature was completely destroyed. Thank you so much for joining us. Please join our cause. Let's save the world.
Bye.